All right, we're now going to take a wire and connect it to a hook terminal. So we'll have Dudley start us out with the steps.
All right, step 1B, insert a terminal into a phenolic block.
All right, done.
Step 1C, clean the terminal.
All right, so I'm going to take my alcohol, lightly clean the terminal, and then add my flux.
Step 1E, clean the iron.
I'm going to clean the iron. Solder is removed. I'm going to remove the oxidation. Okay.
Step 1F, tin the terminal.
And tin the terminal. Lightly tin the iron first. Create a solder bridge at the back of the terminal. Add from the front end, it comes back, and it's tinned.
Step 1G, place the solder wick on the solder. Remove the solder from the terminal.
All right. So now I need to remove any excess solder that happens to be on the terminal. Doesn't look like there's a lot there, but we're going to give this a shot. I'm going to take the solder wick, add flux, lightly flux the solder wick. You have a nice little layer. And then in order to remove this, what I need to do is add solder from the iron to the wick to form a bridge, and then add that to the terminal itself. So I'm gonna lightly clean my iron. I am now going to add solder to my soldering iron, and then I'm going to add this solder to the wick itself, and finally this solder will make a bridge onto the terminal. And then I just wipe it around just like you would wipe a table with a wet cloth, and you can see that it removed any excess solder. Oop, I got to tin my iron before I place it in the holder. Removed any excess solder. The excess solder is now on the solder wick, and that should be solder free.
Step 1H, clean the tinned terminal.
I'm going to clean the tin terminal by taking my stiff bristle brush and my chem wipe so I don't make a mess, and just lightly scrub the hook terminal. Okay.
Step 1I, place the wire up against the bottom of the hook.
All right, that wire that we tinned in the previous step, our previous subject, I'm going to take it and I'm going to place it up, that tin wire, place it up against the terminal. Okay.
Step 1J, wrap the wire tightly around the terminal. The insulation shall not be embedded in the solder joint and shall be less than 2 wire diameters, including insulation.
So what they mean there is my insulation, I do not want this embedded or touching the top of the hook terminal. However, I also don't want to have excess wire sticking out away from the terminal. So I cannot touch it, nor can I be more than 2 wire lengths away. If I take a wire, including the insulation, if I double it up and place it against the terminal, I can see that's a pretty good distance. So I'm going to use a single strand to get me right in between, to give me a good guide of how far I need to be away from that hook terminal. I hold that wire, including the insulation, up against the terminal, and now I'm going to form and bend around the terminal. Now these needle nose do not have any teeth, so it's not doing any damage to the terminal. All right, next step, Devin.
Step 1K, slide the wire off the terminal. Flush cut the bent wire so that it will only make contact with the terminal for a half turn to 3/4 turn.
Okay, what Dudley is saying there is that now that I have my wire bent around my terminal, I'm going to bend, and I want to be either halfway around the terminal to 3/4 of the way. Right now I'm halfway, so I'm going to bend a little bit further before I slide the terminal off. Between 1/2 and 3/4. I'm going to slide off the terminal, and you can see that my connection. Now when I look here though, I want to know how much to cut. I don't want to cut onto the terminal because I may nick or damage the hook terminal. But I do want to grab it lightly so I know where to cut. I'm going to slide it off, and now I'm simply going to cut. Okay.
Step 1L, hold the cut wire against the terminal to check the wrap dimension. The wire shall contact the terminal for the full turn for which it is cut, and recut the end of the wire as necessary.
All right, so I'm looking at my terminal, and I want to just because as I cut it, it can bend, so I just want to hit it up and reform it around the terminal if need be. I can hold it in place and just kind of bend the wire around the terminal. Hold it in place and bend. And just making sure it's all the way up against my terminal. Okay?
All right, now we're going to position the wire, attach the wire from the terminal to the spring, which will hold it during the soldering.
All right, so now I'm bringing my spring over to hold my wire. Whoops. There we go. My spring, and try to get it to hold over the top of my terminal. And ideally, I have it straight up and down. So in this case, I need to come up and bend it over, if possible. There we go. A nice arc. I'm going to check it again, looking to see that it's straight up and down, grabbing the terminal again, forming it, and then making sure mechanically it is connected all the way around the hook terminal, which it is.
All right, and now we're going to clean the connection.
So without disturbing your connection, I'm going to lightly clean the hook and the wire together. And then I'm going to add flux to the entire package. Okay.
Next, we're going to cut the end of the solder.
All right, so now I need to take my solder, cut a piece off, don't burn it off, don't cauterize it. You need that core to be exposed so you can have the flux that's inside the solder. I'm going to clean my solder with my chem wipe and alcohol.
Next, we're going to cut the end of the solder.
Okay.
And then we're going to clean the soldering iron.
All right, now I'm going to go through, clean the iron. Remove the oxidation.
All right, then we're going to position the iron.
Okay.
And then apply solder.
All right, so now I clean the oxidation again. Remember, you only have a few seconds before the oxidation begins to form or yellow on the iron. So I want to keep removing it, but what I want to show you here is I want to take this solder and I want to form a heat bridge between the hook terminal and the wire itself. So I'm going to clean it because it began to yellow. Now I'm going to tin and then create a bridge. Create a bridge between the two. And now, once you have the heat transferred, I can add solder to each end of the hook and to the wire. And then simply remove. Remove the solder first, and then hold for a second, and then remove the iron. Don't forget to re-tin the wire, or the iron, before placing it back in the holder.
And lastly, we're going to clean the connection.
All right, so now I want to clean the connection. I'm going to take a chem wipe and then take solder onto a stiff bristle brush. Place this so you don't make a mess. You place it and wipe the flux off onto the chem wipe. And you got to use that stiff bristle brush because sometimes the flux likes to accumulate into the little joints. Now, when I was adding solder, after forming the bridge, I added the wire to each end of the terminal and to the end of the wire. It's going to flow toward the iron itself. And I cover any exposed copper. Any exposed copper on the hook terminal, any exposed copper on the wire, which there shouldn't be from tinning. And then you don't want to add too much. You just want a nice fillet between the wire itself and the hook terminal. We're going to inspect it. I'm going to slowly try to get this out of here, out of the phenolic block. I have flux that ran down, so I'm going to have to clean the bottom here. Clean the bottom. And then I'm looking at my connection. I don't know if you can see that. I'm looking at my connection and making sure that I have a wire attached to the hook terminal, 1/2 to 3/4 all the way around the hook. A nice fillet, not excess solder. You don't want a big glob. I want to see the outline of the wire, and I want to see the outline of the hook throughout the entire connection, which I do. And then again, not a big glob, and as long as you can see the outline, that is a good solder joint. And no exposed copper, and no flux that's embedded into the wire. Also, you want to make sure that the solder didn't wick up into the wire, which it didn't. So it's a nice flexible joint right here at the end, and a complete connection on both sides, and it's very shiny. Shiny tells you that it wasn't overheated, it didn't move while you were soldering. And that's it.
All right.